Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so very much for dropping by this video. To anyone who's new, this channel is dedicated to helping people understand the difference between actual non-duality and BS non-duality, often called Neo-Advaita. So a warm welcome to one and all. So what I've been thinking about today is, well, I've been thinking about many things, but in terms of this topic, what I've been thinking about is how Neo-Advaita is so much like a religion and why that matters. So, religion is practically a curse word to many people. Many people just have so much disdain for religion. And there's many reasons for that. The simplest one is that not always, but oftentimes what's taught in religion, and maybe more importantly, the way it's taught, is contradictory to what the founder actually taught. Another one of the burdens and problems of religion is that it becomes a structure and an institution. And it becomes, if the goal of the spiritual path is to connect to God, then religion becomes this thing that says, hey, you need me to connect to God. It kind of becomes this middleman, again, usually in complete contradiction to the original message. So that's some of the reasons why people have such disdain for organized religion. Well, guess what? Neo-Advaita is nothing more and nothing less than organized religion. Actually, I'd call it disorganized religion, but regardless, it really uses many of the same dynamics. It takes bits and pieces of a spiritual tradition or of a philosophy, magnifies those, focuses on those, and excludes so many other things. Welcome to my live viewers. If you have any questions or comments, type them in and I'll get to them in a little bit. And so this is very common. So I was raised Christian. And so Christians love to focus on John 3:16. Like if you speak English, you've heard or read somewhere John 3:16, or you've heard that repeated over and over and over. And so the way that one verse is taught contradicts and changes the whole message of all the other verses. And one of the ways that verse is taught, don't worry, we'll get back to Neo-Advaita in a moment, but this is really fun, fascinating. I don't know about fun. One of the ways that verse is taught is that Jesus is the only way. So this proves that you've got to be a Christian or you're going to spend eternity in hell, even though that verse doesn't talk about hell. What Christians don't like to talk about is the next verse says that Jesus has come to save the world. So that's just a beautiful example of the blindness of religion, of let's just focus on one detail. Let's make up a whole story that contradicts all the other details. Well, that's really what Neo-Advaita has done, is it'll take one quote here or there and then completely dismiss and oftentimes even attack the other components of actual non-duality, of actual Advaita Vedanta. So I got a beautiful comment from someone that I'm going to read. This person wrote, "Hi there, the problem with Neo-Advaita isn't the ultimate truth it advocates, as that it is the very same ultimate truth classical Advaita posits. The problem is it skips the practices that bring about the necessary clarity and purity of mind needed to understand that ultimate truth. Only focusing on the one verse from the Mandukya Karaka, which is an Upanishad. There is no creation, no destruction, no bondage, no longing to be freed from bondage, no striving to be free from bondage, nor anyone who has attained freedom from bondage. Know that this is the ultimate truth." So that's one verse from one Vedic text that in what I call NeoAdvaita, which is there's nothing to do since you're already enlightened. NeoAdvaita is crazier than NeoAdvaita. So it takes that one verse and it creates a whole religion around that one verse, just as Protestant Christianity, which is the second largest form of Christianity today, has taken one verse and created a whole religion around it. So I'll continue. Neo-Advaita is actually hostile to the four yogas as it views they further entrap one within Maya, illusion. There is great wisdom in the saying, there is no path, but only a fool doesn't follow it. Ignore that bit of wisdom at one's own peril. So I love that quote. There is no path, but only a fool doesn't follow it, which is, I've shared recently that I'm studying with a traditional Hindu Swami, and over and over and over, she talks about how everything is one and that you need to learn how to have harmonious relationships with the various aspects of reality that seem different. You have to learn how to have harmonious relationships, how to be a good worker, how to be a good cat dad, how to strive for your best in every situation, all the while recognizing that everything is actually one and all these things we see are temporary configurations that will be gone, and yet to love it as sacred and actually part of ultimate reality of God. And so before this, the person said, Neo-Advaita is actually hostile to the four yogas, as its view is they further entrap one within Maya. And so if I really only had one thing to say about Neo-Advaita, it's this. Neo-Advaita teaches a different message than Advaita Vedanta. So Ramana Maharshi advocated the four yogas for people who needed them, and most people, and that would be most people. He advocated preparatory practices. Neo-Advaita says, oh, those practices are bad. Like that's how different the two teachings are. So really, this channel is kind of dedicated to three ideas. Neo-Advaita and actual non-duality have completely different messages. That's idea number one. Idea number two, Neo-Advaita is dangerous. It's a delusional philosophy that actually brainwashes you. And idea number three, here's some ways that I've recovered from it, and I believe and hope they can be helpful for you. That's kind of all I talk about here on this channel, is some variation on those three ideas. So I really appreciate this comment, and it really just highlights how opposite the two are. So let's see if there's anything else I'd like to share right now. The only other thing I would like to say is this comment started off with, it says, the problem with Neo-Advaita isn't the ultimate truth it advocates, is that it is the very same ultimate truth classic Advaita posits. Now, I would partially disagree. Neo-Advaita, and what I would say, I would fine tune that. Neo-Advaita uses similar language as traditional Advaita Vedanta. But when you really get down to it, Neo-Advaita is nihilism. That's all it is nihilism. It doesn't give any guidance for how to live your life, and in fact makes people dysfunctional. Hey, Marion, we'll get to your comment in a minute. Thank you. The view it presents of God is kind of this empty nothingness. Neo-Advaita often says that life has no meaning, that everything is predetermined. You have no free will. You have no ability to do anything. And you're just kind of trapped in this. The only thing you can do is realize your true nature. That's kind of And once you do that, then you'll just kind of become nothing. That's Neo-Advaita's basic nihilistic message. And actual Advaita Vedanta disagrees on each one of those points. What makes it confusing is that just as religion will quote an idea or quote a verse, so you're like, oh, so you think like, oh, this is the actual truth or teaching, when actually they just take one verse or one idea and blow it up and distort it. So, Marion, just wanted to say hi. Haven't caught you live in ages. Much love. Thanks, Marion. Received and returned. I've been, as I've shared, not sure if you're aware of it, Marion, I've been studying with a traditional Advaita Vedanta guru. And, I thought, I knew and I shared many times, Neo-Advaita, traditional Advaita, very different. But now it's more like, oh my God, just completely different. I didn't even realize how different they were until I started studying with a traditional and actual Advaita Vedanta guru. So I think that's all. I think that's all I have for today. Great to catch you, Marion. Thank you to everyone who dropped by. And so I think the last thing I'll say is my own process in overcoming and recovering from Neo-Advaita was this first piece of recognizing that the two were different. And that's a big leap, because Neo-Advaita is all about keeping people in a mind maze. And also, as I've shared many times, it's an addictive practice and an addictive philosophy, because it gets you high. If you think about Neo-Advaita ideas, you will it will elevate your mood, and you will have a quasi-spiritual experience. But how legitimate it is, I can't say. But so just to make it through that first step of, oh my God, they're different. And then to stop going to Neo-Advaita, associating with Neo-Advaita satsangs and teachers and people, that's a whole process. And then to find a spiritual path that you actually resonate with and is healthy, and then to begin to unwind the Neo-Advaita web. These are the steps I went through. And I feel that I've more or less completed those steps. And now I'm in the process of rebuilding my personality and my life. So that's where I'm at in this process. Let's see, Marion. Marion Rose. When I was young, I studied the SRF Yogananda lessons and felt spiritually bloated. Now I'm old. I prefer the spaciousness and Zen. Glad you're doing well. Yeah, I have profound respect for Yogananda, and I haven't studied haven't done the SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship course. I'd be curious to know what you mean by bloated. That's one of the beautiful things about Zen is it's very spacious. I have a friend who is she's not a teacher, but she's in a leadership position in a Zen monastery. And she and I have talked quite a bit about Zen's approach to the mind and the beliefs. And the way her teacher explained it to her was that beliefs are fetters. They're things that bind. Yet you need beliefs to find your way out. In essence, you could say thoughts, believing thoughts bind the mind, but you need thoughts to find your way out of the maze. And in fact, the comment I wrote at the very beginning, they also said, Swami Vivekananda often said, learn to work the machine, referring to Maya and the spiritual practices. So my conversations with my friend, we've talked about how in her tradition, there's this discernment of, it's not so much is a belief true, but is it helpful? Is it moving one towards the truth? Because ultimate truth is beyond all ideas. But it's a subtle and delicate process to get one to the point where you no longer need those ideas. And I'm not there yet, so I won't speak so much further about that. I'm just sharing what my friend said about that. Last but not least, another quote from the person who left a comment. I would recommend to anyone interested in Advaita Vedanta to get a copy of Vivekananda, the Yogas and Other Work. It's a long read, at almost 1,000 pages of hardcover book, but well worth it. So thank you so much, everyone, for dropping by. Oh, let's see what you had to say, Marion. Marion wrote, I mean, the Vedanta-like traditions make me feel overwhelmed. My spiritual life just feels zen like now. I have no beliefs. Was glad to escape the SRF belief system. Yeah, I can't speak to the SRF belief system. The thing is, so you say, I mean, the Vedanta-like tradition. And so I experienced that too. And now that I've begun to study traditional Advaita Vedanta with, now I know what you mean by bloated. I'll get to that in a sec. Now that I've begun to study traditional Advaita Vedanta with a traditional teacher, what's skipped in NeoAdvaita is a foundation. And without that foundation, yes, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. I did for like 20 years in NeoAdvaita, but in traditional Advaita Vedanta, a foundation is laid, and then the process of taking in these ideas, it's done much more slowly and gently and holistically than you'll find in NeoAdvaita circles. And so now I understand what you mean about bloating. Zen is very much, you could say, anti-belief, or I won't say anti-philosophy, but kind of. It really doesn't like to get into the very analytical philosophy that is. Here's the thing. NeoAdvaita teachers will say things like, drop the mind, yet they teach these very abstract philosophy that requires you to engage your mind. Traditional Advaita Vedanta has an analytical, philosophical component to it. 100%. 100%. But yet NeoAdvaita teachers say, drop the mind. And then they give you this very deep, intense philosophy that you can't not think about. It's nutso. Good, Marion. And see, that's the thing is NeoAdvaita. See, Vedic philosophy as a whole is about finding what works for you. It's about meeting the individual where they're at. And that applies to traditional Advaita Vedanta as well. It's, what does this person need? So it's beautiful that Zen works for you. And what I'm finding for myself is I need to find a balance between the three primary yogas of Jnana Yoga, abstract philosophy, of Bhakti Yoga, devotional practices, and Karma Yoga, of what Karma Yoga is a whole topic, but it's an attitude of being of service and doing your duty. It's called the yoga of action, but it's more the yoga of how to do action. So personally, I need to balance all three of those things because I'm very active person. I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very analytical person. And those three yogas, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, then they help me. But someone who is not an analytical person, Jnana Yoga or the philosophical component of Advaita Vedanta or any type of Vedanta is going to leave you feeling bloated, like Marion. Marion wrote, Neo-Advaita pretends to get rid of bloatware, then gives you a whole new crop of it. Thank you, Marion. Everything is coming together. Everything's not perfect, but everything's been coming together, and you've been coming by this channel for a good year and a half, if not longer, maybe even 2 years. So you're tuned in. You've gotten to watch my journey, and I hope you get to see where it goes next. Because I'm really excited. Marion wrote, I did it all. The analysis, etc., but it's great to let it go too. Alleluia to that. Alleluia. Thank you, Marion. I'm root for you. I am rooting, and I will continue to root for you. And your participation on this channel has been such a gift over the years. So I'm off. Great to connect again, Marion. And thank you to everyone who took the time to watch this video. Namaste.